we're just about here. There we go. Holy cow. We are live and in person. Well, sort of in person. In person's a weird thing these days. So, all right. So, yeah, no, that's not going to work. We want this, but it's going to be kind of backwards there, but I'm sharing the screen, so I'm all over the place here. All right. Good morning, everyone. It is Tech Tuesday on November 16th. Got Chuck in the room here. We got some people. Are they starting to show up in Facebook yet? Yeah, we got some bodies in Facebook. All right. Glad to have you guys here. Today we are going to be going over DocuSign. And I should warn you, DocuSign's being weird this morning. I've got a few emails from people that are saying that there's some troubles, and I actually see the troubles. So I haven't had a chance to begin working on that issue because I'm going to be here with you guys for the next hour. So I will actually just start off by telling you what's going on for those of you who might happen to be in Facebook and catching this right now. DocuSign is having a thing right now where when you go into the Documents tab of an opportunity, even if you've already created a transaction here, and you can see that I've got a transaction proper in DocuSign, so I've got one of those there. I'll go ahead and delete that. We don't need that up there right now. And whatever documents you have in that room, and right now there isn't any, and that doesn't matter for the purposes of what I'm about to show you. When you're back in Command, and you want to pull those documents back to Command from, that's why. I just found the problem. Okay, for those of you who are watching, so here's the problem. They changed the functionality. It's not broken. There's a change in functionality, and that change is clearly just started today. And I'll go ahead and show you this here. So you're getting a little bonus feature change, as well as you're getting a bonus DocuSign lesson here. So here we are in a command room, a command opportunity. And when you now click on attach files, where it says attach files from for an existing transaction, DocuSign is correctly lit up here. But you can see that until you specify which folder or room document folder you're working from, until you specify that, you will not have the option to select documents. So what I did was I already clicked on room docs. So I have selected the document folder in DocuSign. And the default should be room docs, but it's actually defaulting to nothing. So with nothing selected, when you click this, nothing will happen because you haven't selected where to look for the documents in DocuSign. Once you select the room docs, it will default to show you those room docs and show you those the docs that are in the room that are available to be pulled in. So So now we have a solution. Now I'm going to have to tell everybody on Facebook, and also several of the emails that have come through that are showing that. So it's a feature change inside of Command, not very intuitive, but it is definitely something that is happening right now, live as we speak. So that's what's happening in DocuSign. And I'll make a short little video to post it on Facebook afterwards to show you guys what's going on. In the meantime, so let's go ahead and start talking about DocuSign 101 or DocuSign Intro. So first of all, for those of you, Chuck, you've been with me for a while, so you actually have an understanding of DocuSign. So some of this might be a little rudimentary for you, and I apologize, but I do, it is a 101. It's a brand new class for those people who have not worked with DocuSign. So you might pick up some stuff in here. Hopefully you will. But at the same time, this is an intro to DocuSign. So with that in mind, let's talk about what DocuSign is and what it is not. So I'm going to go over to DocuSign, and I'm going to go to my DocuSign dashboard, and I'm going to show it to you just kind of like what I've got here. So DocuSign is very simply, and its root core, I guess that's the same thing, at its root is a document signing tool. So what it does is it allows you to do electronic signatures via email for your transactions. Now, for some of you who may have come from .loop, and for some of you who may not have any experience with Command, KW's Command whatsoever, You might actually think that, and you might actually have experience with this, where you're using DocuSign or .loop in a greater capacity. What that means is you're using it for the entire transaction. There are some organizations out there that are outside of KW that they use .loop or they use DocuSign to manage the transaction, to do the whole thing. So what that means is when it's time to start doing the business of paperwork with an opportunity or a contract process, everything happens in DocuSign or everything happens in .loop. Now, while that is physically possible, .loop more so, I'm going to probably get a hand slap for this, .loop more so than DocuSign because it was built as a standalone contract management tool. Okay. DocuSign was originally designed and originally created as just an electronic signature tool. Now, some of you may be new to this. I've actually been aware of and using DocuSign for probably 10 years now. So about 10 years ago, I got introduced to it. And what I was doing was building forms inside of DocuSign and using those for software implementation jobs, for training outlines and things like that. And I was using it not as a signature tool, although we did use it for contracts, but mostly for a document filling process for me. So I was able to do that. Now, because we're at Keller Williams and we're looking at the Keller Williams what's the branded? That's the word I'm looking for. The Keller Williams branded version of DocuSign. DocuSign has spent a lot of money and a lot of effort to make DocuSign work for us as a company. And in doing so, they are very interested in making sure that they keep our business by adding new features, adding new tools, and constantly upgrading the process. So if you used DocuSign a while ago, even as much as a year ago, and I started a year ago with Keller Williams, it's changed a lot because Gary and the team went to DocuSign and said, you guys need to do some things for us. And here's why, because we have a lot of users and we use you guys as our primary document signing process. So they've done some fantastic upgrades. So this class here is not going to show you all the bells and whistles. There's so much. As a matter of fact, if you want to examine all of the different facets of DocuSign, then I'm going to have you head over to our YouTube page. So it's going to be RTube and the kwtechtube.com, kwtechtube.com. Hey, look, there's me, and I'm live right now. I wonder what would happen if I press that and I watch myself live. Would I go into a time loop? Check it out. I'm in a loop. I am. Look at me. I'm in a time loop. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to stop that before it gets weird. All right. All right. On this page, on kwtechtube.com, we have playlists. If you go down here a little bit and you look, you're going to see there's a Command 101 playlist with my orange little tiles here. There is a Command Select or a Command 201 with all the blue tiles. And then our nice little greenish tile, whatever you want to call this color, this teal color, the DocuSign. There is a whole slew. As a matter of fact, if I click on the name of the playlist, you can see here, we've done a bunch of DocuSign classes here. So going way back to 10.5 when we started doing this, I'm repeating that class now. You can go to the workshop all about forms, all about envelopes, PDF scanning and fields, setup and your NERDS ID, and splitting and combining. And now we're back to working from the beginning. This series, I'm really proud of this because it takes its time and it goes through all the different facets of DocuSign. Please take a look at that at kwtechtube.com if you're interested in the extra things. And we're going to be constantly doing these. So now that we've said that, we've got everything all dialed in. This front page here, this is the dashboard of DocuSign. I'll be honest with you, most of you using it the way that I show you today will not spend a lot of time on the dashboard. Very rarely, if at all, are you going to go into DocuSign directly into DocuSign without getting to DocuSign by clicking on the Go to Transactions button. If you do, however, I want to show you something. All right. So as a matter of fact, I'm going to close all the other tabs on my browser here. And I want you to check something out. I'm going to open a brand new browser tab. And in this browser tab, we're going to go to DocuSign. I'm going to log into DocuSign outside of command. And I want to show you what happens here. So if I just type in DocuSign, DocuSign.com, and I go there, check it out. It says, buy DocuSign, get DocuSign. It's exactly what you would expect. In the top right-hand corner, there's a login button. And watch what happens when you log in to DocuSign from this page here. It doesn't take you to DocuSign Rooms. It takes you to the DocuSign e-signature page. This is the default page that you land on if you log into DocuSign outside of command. So in a way, we're already saving time by using command because it'll take us to our rooms. The other thing is, how do you switch from DocuSign e-signature, which is the front page here, to DocuSign Rooms? Well, you can do that very, very easily here, right in the middle of the page at the bottom. It says DocuSign Rooms, organize envelopes needed for transactions, blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, you can also come up to your profile icon in the right-hand corner and choose Switch to Rooms. Now, before I go to Rooms, I want to explain a little bit of something about DocuSign e-signature that may be helpful to you going forward. Now, I did a class on in-person signing in DocuSign. And what that means is you as an agent would set up all the documents that you're going to have somebody sign, but you're not going to send them electronically. Maybe they don't have an email, maybe they don't have an internet connection. And you're going to physically take your computer to some place where there is an internet connection, and you're going to have them sign the documents using your computer, but they're going to be signing as themselves. That process, without getting into it today, uses e-signature for the in-person signing half of DocuSign in-person signings. So there is value here for you as an agent, and it's one of those things that's kind of, it's not super intuitive, I'll admit that, but you can use in-person signatures, and you use that through e-signature, through the front page here. So now I'm going to switch to Rooms. I can go and click on Rooms here. It says Switch to Rooms. Good job. Here we go. And here we are in the Rooms. So once again, we're on the dashboard. You'll notice now also that the profile icon in the top right-hand corner shows a KW logo. This is very, very important. You need to be signed in with your Keller Williams email in order to be under our ecosystem to get all of the tools that you need to sign in DocuSign. Don't worry about too much about that right now, because I am going to show you how to do that, and I'm always available to make sure that that works for you and it's set up correctly. However, keep that in mind that DocuSign is under the Keller Williams umbrella. If you created an account of DocuSign and you did not do it through command, and you just said, oh, I'm just going to go sign up for DocuSign, it's not going to automatically do for you what you expect it to do, and we're going to have to do some kind of finagling to make it work. So if you're having trouble with your DocuSign account not seeing the KW system up here in the top right-hand corner, reach out to me. Okay. So here we are again on the dashboard, and on the dashboard it does show you your recently viewed rooms. It shows you any new rooms that you've recently created, and it has a signing activity. There is value here because you could log in, take a look and say, oh, looks like we've got some completed documents. Yes, I did get the email notification, because you're going to get an email notification for all of these, but you can see what's going on. And look, I just did recently an in-person signing. So showing how that works. And then we have also down here, new document access, things that I've put inside for different folders or different rooms that I now can access. Okay, so recently viewed rooms at the top is always most recent. All right, I'm going to jump over to Rooms now. And I'm going to tell you something extremely important about rooms. A room is essentially a transaction folder. It's a transaction folder that is isolated from every other folder. So each one of these rooms is its own unique entity. It's like a vault for the documents, the signature process, the legalese, all of the certifications for every transaction. No documents to cross from one room to another. You can move documents, yes, but you're explicitly saying, I want to move documents from one room to another. These rooms are all created, and I say all, and I'm going to be pretty firm here, they're all created from within Command. You might be tempted someday to come into this rooms section and say, well, I need a new room for a transaction. And you might be tempted to hit this new button up here. Whatever you do, don't do this. All right. Don't do it, because if you create a room in this methodology, you are not connecting that room to DocuSign and the transaction in DocuSign. You can't do that backwards. You can't create the room and then go connect it to DocuSign or to Command. As a matter of fact, it's physically not possible. So what happens is you end up with two separate entities, a room that is completely isolated and alone in DocuSign, and in Command, it doesn't see it. So we don't want to create a room for a transaction that's happening in Command here. So don't do it. I'll pause there because some of you may have questions about that. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here? Does anybody have any questions about why or what the reasons behind that are? Okay. All right. So that's awesome, because what that means is we're going to have, if anybody needs any troubleshooting, I won't have to worry about whether or not the room was created correctly. Let me demonstrate for you really quickly one that was not and one that was created correctly. So down here we have a bunch of rooms. You see how down underneath each room there's a label that says KC, Keller Williams Coastal Lakes and Mountains Realty, the originator, the owner, the creator of the room. But then I have one right here that says Cool Room, and it says Robert Vincent. This room was created using the new button, not from Command. All of these were created in a transactional process within Command and generated the room. This room cannot be seen by Command. It's invisible. Command doesn't know that this thing exists. And not only that, but inside of that room, let's see, we'll go ahead and just jump right into the room. Inside of that room, it's so isolated that any details that I put in here are not referenced back in Command. Any documents that I put here are not going to be visible in Command. Any envelopes that I create are going to be isolated and invisible from every other area. It's a bad way to do things. So I'll stop harping on that, and I will just let you know. If you see your own personal name and your personal little profile picture here for a room, reach out to me. We'll have to do some finagling to convert it to a proper KW room, but we can do it and we can make that happen for you. So how do you create those rooms? So in Command, when you are inside the documents area of a transaction, when you're right inside here, there will be a new transaction button. It will say start a transaction. And when you click that, it'll open up a room, create the room, and synchronize those two together. It will pull the information about the contact, about the listing, about the pricing, about the closing information, about everything, the MLS. All of that will be pulled into the room automatically. And then when you're trying to pull documents back and forth between DocuSign and Command, you'll be able to do so right from this screen here. Okay. So we'll go and do one of those in just a moment. Okay. So each of these rooms has the ability, of course, as you can see, to put a little image on it. Now, I just went to town here and grabbed about 1,000 images from Google search just to show you some of the home or some of the pictures you can put on here. But what I like to demonstrate for you guys is putting a picture in here, and it takes no time at all. It's something where it actually helps you, because if you've got different transactions for the same person, maybe it's somebody's buying multiple houses, or they have bought multiple houses, you're going to see their name in here multiple times. And if that's the case, using an image from the home, from the MLS or something like that, can make it just a little bit easier to see. Additionally, on this rooms page here, you can change the view from a grid view that is showing the pictures all the way to a smaller little view that shows you a list view. Now, I'm a real big fan of list view when I'm inside of a room, when I'm using the documents inside of a room. I'm not a huge fan of that out here because it doesn't seem as intuitive into what it is. I find myself looking at this going, okay, I think I know which one I'm at. But I like the grid view for the rooms themselves, but from within the, I think they've got some documents in here. Maybe there's some documents in this one to show you. Good, perfect. So here is one of the rooms inside the room, and here's all of the documents. And you've got little thumbnail images of each of the documents, but there's that same option to convert it into a list view. Now, I like this because when I'm trying to find a document, you get the full name of the document. It's not cut off. You can see which ones are NHAR, and you can see which ones are the KWCLMs when they're in here, which I don't have any KWCLM documents. I've got an Excel file in here. I got a whole bunch of things. So this is my preferred view when I'm working in documents, but when I'm working in the rooms area, my preferred view is the grid view. It's totally up to you. So from this rooms view, now I'm outside of the room and I'm back into the looking at all of my rooms at one time now. From here, you can search. So you can search for something. Now I've got a lot of people in here. So if I just put a, search for Robert, I've got a lot of things in here that are Robert Vincent. If I search in here for Jackie, same thing. Wow, I can't type. Jacque. I can see all the ones that I've got for Jackie here. You can also, if you've done some things correctly, and I'll discuss that right now, if you have named your opportunities in command correctly, then you can also search for addresses. So Epping, for example. I can just search for Epping and find all of the rooms that contain Epping as part of the title of the room. So what does that mean in terms of creating a proper room from within command? Well, let's jump back to command and take a look for a second. When you're creating, and I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new opportunity and show you the flow of information between command and DocuSign, specifically to do with those room names. When you create an opportunity, you should always, remember this, this is a definite. Let me close off the dogs. Hang on one second. Their play date is here, so they're excited. So when you are creating an opportunity, you always start the opportunity in command from the person or the contact who the opportunity belongs to. Then you go to the Opportunities tab here on the right-hand side within the contact. You click Create Opportunity. So you get the opportunity type here, a listing, buyer, landlord, or tenant. Now, it used to be, it defaulted to listing, and they've changed that now, so you actually have to select which one, forcing you hopefully to correctly identify the transaction type, because we had a lot of people that weren't pulling down this drop down and it was defaulting to a listing, and they were making mistakes because they're like, oh man, it's a listing, it was supposed to be a buyer. So now they're forcing you to select the one. So let's choose listing. So right here, this Robert Vincent listing, it populated the word listing. If I change it over here to buyer, it changes it to buyer. So it populated the name of the opportunity with my name and the opportunity type. If I did nothing else, then that's the name of the DocuSign room that's going to be created in DocuSign. But command and compliance for here at KWCLM, we don't want you to do that because it's hard to identify. What does this mean, listing? Don't replace it with just the address. Don't do that. Replace the end of it here, Robert Vincent listing, and you're going to put in 456 Main Street and Epping. Okay, you don't need the state, you don't need the zip code, but if you have the, well, the state is not terribly bad because we have 4 states now. So that might, I'll amend that and say, yeah, let's put the state in there as well. But now by putting this in here, when we create the room in DocuSign, that's going to be the name of the room, which means we can now search for any element. We can search for the person, we can search for the address, we can search for the city, we can search for the state. So do yourself a favor when you're creating the opportunities. Give yourself a head start on being able to understand what it's going to look like when you create the room. Okay, so I'll put my commission rate in here and I'll create it. So I now have an opportunity, and here it is. I made one earlier before we got started here, and here is my second opportunity for the day. underneath that contact. So there was the first one without any address, and here is one with an address. So now that we have that, let's watch what happens when we create the room in DocuSign. So we're going to open this opportunity. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that I'm going to do a very common mistake. I'm going to show you a very common mistake that people make, all right? And I'm going to show you the results of that. Sample watermark, anyone? So I'm going to show you how this thing that pisses everybody off happens. And it's going to be the sample watermark. I'm not going to select a listing for this listing. Let's say that the listing isn't in the MLS yet. So why would I select the listing if I don't have it in the MLS? So I'll skip that step. All right. So I'm going to go over here to the Documents tab. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm going to pull down my checklist type. It's a New Hampshire checklist. I've got my address in there. Everything's good. There's no listing because it's not in the MLS yet. And I'm going to click Start a Transaction. Now, in my command software, I have both DocuSign and .loop. But I'm going to choose DocuSign because this class is about DocuSign. So I'll click that, and up on the top of my screen, you're going to see that the transaction is being generated, and it's taking me directly into the brand new created room. Here it is. It's taking me directly into DocuSign. The room name is the name of my opportunity. So 456 Main Street, Epping, New Hampshire. And it takes me directly to the Documents tab. It does not take me to the Details tab where there's a lot of information, all right? It takes me to the Documents tab, and I'm in a hurry. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to click Add. And I click on DocuSign Forms because I need that wire fraud, and I need that brokerage relationship form. So I come in here, and I'll say, all right, so let's go with the 463, and I'll go with wire fraud. There's my wire fraud, and I need my brokerage relationship form. Broke. All right. Brokerage. There we go. Brokerage relationship form. This is a seller, so I need those. I gotta get this thing done. Gotta get it out right away. And I hit Add Selected, and it pulls them in. And I'll switch back over. I told you I like the other view better, but I'll pull it into this view. And oh my God, what is going on with that wire fraud alert? Why do I see that stupid sample in there? And the first thing you guys do is call me and say, how do I print this without the word sample? And then I look at you guys and go, well, it's because there's nothing on the form. That's it, you guys. The reason sample is in there is because there's nothing on the form. And what goes on this form, and you're thinking to yourself, all I need is a signature, Robert. Don't fill anything out. That's absolutely true. But look down at the very, very bottom. There's a slot down here, optional, room, property, location, address. Per address to, city, state, and zip. There is no address, Robert. There is no address because it is not in the MLS yet. And while that is entirely true, let's go back to command and prevent this from happening. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to remove both of these documents, and we're going to do this as if we had a fresh room. I'll kill these, get rid of them. No rooms. Come back to command. Here's where this thing was going to pick up the address. If I go to the Details tab and I sit there and I look at this and I say, no, Robert, there's no listing yet. It's not in the MLS. That's okay. Down here under Property on the Details tab, when you see this where it says synced, notice that there's no property listed. But this little edit button allows you to search for the property without the MLS getting involved. This is just a Google Street search. So putting the address in here and the property information, because it's not ready for the MLS, but there's the address. And I'm going to synchronize this address with command. And I'll hit that sync button and I'll update the sync. Let it go for a second. I'll verify that I've got synchronized data. Synced. The address is now synced across to DocuSign. Go back over here to Documents. I'll go to the transaction. It opens up my transaction in DocuSign just as you would expect. Here's my blank room. Add DocuSign Forms. And I'll search for wire. And I'll bring that wire fraud. And I'll just bring this one in here for you. I hit this. It brings it into the room. I'll refresh this page. Make the thumbnail light up for us here. And there it is. No sample. When I look at the wire fraud alert, again, they only need to sign it, but the form cannot go out blank, and it won't because the street address came over from command. That's worth the price of admission for today, you guys, because this is it is literally the most common call that I get is how do I get rid of the sample? Simply put an address in there. That's it. Okay. So now that we know that that information came over from command, the question is always the same thing. Well, what information comes over from command? So I'm going to show you a sync DocuSign, an article that is in the Keller Williams answers.kw.com. This is our database of support and assistance. And I always refer to this same article whenever I do a class on DocuSign because the question always comes up, how do I know what information is automatically populated in DocuSign and what good is it? So the article is called Sync Opportunity Details with the Connected DocuSign Room or Dot Loop, because this applies to Dot Loop as well. So now that I've done that, oh gosh, you guys, I'm sorry. There was a chat in here from Erica. Erica, I missed this until just now. I apologize. I'm looking at it right now. So always create an opportunity in command, then access. Yes, correct. I use both address and buyer name. Yep. When I forgot their address, but they're perfect. Excellent. So thank you. Thank you for confirming that because you will find that, again, it will make your life a lot easier. So what I'm going to do with this very article is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it into the chat so you can look at it and see it anytime. So what synchronizes across? Well, I'll slide down here to the middle. Where does info pull from when syncing to your DocuSign.loop room? Well, from your White Pages profile, the room will receive your agent name, email, phone number, your market center information, and address. So you don't have to put that in there. So you don't have to type in Keller Williams Coastal and Lakes and Mountains Realty. What else? Well, the opportunity, the attached listing. And there was that proof that I just gave you about the address. And the first thing you're thinking is, well, Robert, you said that was not a listing yet. It was just an address. The address that's in the property area of the opportunity, whether it's in the MLS yet or not, will be pulled if you do the steps that I showed you. The listing address, the year bolt, listing date, price, size, MLS ID. If you go into command and you click this button where the listing is, and you pull that as the search, and I'll go ahead and show you what I mean by that. I'm going to remove the physical address, and I'm going to click this button to select it from a listing that's already active. And this time I'll do 456 Main Street, and let's see if that's anything going on. Okay, so we'll do that. I'll make sure that I'm just looking at all listings. 456 Main Street. There is an MLS ID from 725. Okay, but that's Halstead, PA. I'm sorry. Well, I guess it really doesn't matter because my point is the same. So here's a 456 Main Street with an MLS. So apparently Epping, New Hampshire is not on the MLS right now. 14, no, it's not there. So with that being said, I'm just going to grab any old 456 Main Street that is an MLS. And I want you to see that when I do that and I put it into my slot here, clicking on it now shows me the picture, the hero shot, and the money, and the amount for the MLS listing. Previously, it showed just a little generic no picture, and it did not have the details. Now that I've done that, all of that MLS stuff that it says here, the opportunity is going to sync the address, year built, all that stuff. If I resync with command now on my details page, all of that MLS data is going into DocuSign. It's dumping it all in there. So at the end of the day, if you don't have a listing because it's not in the MLS, add the property address here on the right. After you get the listing and it's been entered in the MLS, come back here, remove the property address by clicking here and clicking remove, and then search for the MLS listing and put that in there. and resync the transaction with DocuSign, and all that other goodness will go over to DocuSign, and you'll have a fully synced transaction. So in DocuSign now, if I go back to the details area of this room and I look, I will see the MLS ID. I will see the information, anything that came over from the MLS. Here's the address in Brandenburg, Kentucky. There's the postal code, all that goodness, the listing date, the listing amount. It's all been pulled in, which means any document that refers to any of the data in here will now get updated with that information. Questions?
Robert, I'm sorry I'm late.
That's it.
But
Alice, I'm just going to have to DocuPay.
all right, I'll give you half of my nickel, 2.5 cents.
Make
That's
sure you get that
about
half
what we make. When you go, I missed the part where you said how you pull it over from the MLS into DocuSign. Where do you go to pull that in?
So once you're in the opportunity itself,
right
here at the place where it says, select your opportunity or select your listing, this
right.
is where you get the listing data versus over here where you get just the property data. So if you click that little pencil icon here, that's just property. But to get the listing here, it would be empty. So you would just then click on select from listings.
Okay.
All right. Now, last thing on this here, make sure that if you do make any changes in command to the opportunity, that you synchronize that transaction from the details page, because that information needs to get pushed over. So don't just make changes and forget to hit that button, because you want to hit it to synchronize that data with DocuSign. And now that that information is in DocuSign, we see it in the details tab. Remember, any document that uses stuff from any of these fields will now populate automatically with those fields. So it will automatically do it. So if I bring in a purchase and sales agreement here, I click on add and I say DocuSign forms, and we'll do, what do you call it? Alice, what's one of the documents that would have as the listing side information about the MLS? What document should be like showing some of the listing information?
The listing agreement.
Okay. All right. So let's see where that is. Listing agreement. Let's do it with, let's try to type listing correctly.
Property disclosure.
There we go. So listing agreement designated agency, would that pull the property information?
Yes.
No, but
No?
property, I don't think, no, that's between you and the, the property disclosure.
Okay, property disclosure. Okay, so there we go. Property disclosure residential. There we go. So let's bring that one in here. So now, as I mentioned, all of the information that's available now in the details area, if it's in there and this document requires any of it, it's already populated. So if I click on that property disclosure form and load it up, you're going to see in the beginning here, it's going to kind of like flash for a second, showing you the property information that was loaded. So here it is, the property information, the address, and if there is any additional information about the property, like land size or anything that is required on this form, it will fill out. So this gave you all that goodness, and you didn't have to retype it on this thing anywhere. It's all in the document. Okay. So this process of building the details page out by completing as much information in command as possible saves you all this time in DocuSign to create this. All right. So since this is an intro class, I have gotten a little ahead because I wanted to show you how important it is to make sure that command has a proper build out of all the data before you go to use the DocuSign tools. But the value of doing that will be that every document will have the same correct information throughout the whole system. So you can't go wrong there. Okay. So now do we
Robert, I get a quick question.
Sure.
So
I was trying to type in and search for documents like you just did. And I think is it possible to actually permanently delete forms out of DocuSign? Because
No.
I can't get any, like I'm typing in wire fraud, no document.
It's not in there.
Okay.
All right.
So when you're looking at this form box, is that what you're talking about?
I'm not even there. So how did you get to that? Maybe that's why I'm confused.
All right. So in the DocuSign Rooms area under Documents, so you see where we're talking. I have mine.
Yeah.
Do you have an Add button in the top right corner?
Oh. That's why. Okay.
Were you going to My Docs and looking in here? In this area?
No, I wasn't in My Docs. No,
okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I found where you're at now.
All right. So there you go.
Because I thought I started typing in from documents and nothing showed up, but we click that. Now I'm set.
Okay. So Erica just typed in that it is allowing us to delete docs in the room. And that is true. So let's talk about that for a second. Okay. So in order to kind of fully explore what's going on with deleting and forms and all that, we need to understand what DocuSign can actually bring into a room. Okay. So the Documents tab here, the two documents, which is not what these actually are. We're using it as a generic term right now. These aren't documents. These are forms. And we can see that by the little blue icon here for the form. It says form. A form is a template that is not, it's not real. It's a virtual object. And let's explore what that means. The wire fraud alert form that I loaded from the Add button DocuSign forms is an instance. It is a version. It is like taking a sticky note and peeling off the top copy and saying, now I have a sticky note, but underneath all the copies are exactly the same. So you took off one version of it and you've got one in your hand. That version, that form is a fillable DocuSign object. It is not a document. Okay. So what that means is this thing, you cannot delete that object from the library. You don't have access to that because the library is the stack of sticky notes that is controlled by KWRI down in Texas, and it's controlled by the administrators here at Keller Williams, local. Okay, you can't delete anything out of here. Never going to happen. But if you bring in an instance of, for say, the wire fraud, if you bring it in and you're like, you know what, I don't need it now. For some reason, you don't need that document in the room, that form in the room. You can right click that, and I'll slide down a little bit further so you can see it. And you can delete the instance from the room. Yes, you can do that. You delete the instance. Now, one of the things that you also cannot do is you can't have two instances of the same form. And this took me a little while to get my head around at the beginning because I thought that when you filled one of these out, it kind of hard stamped or burned in the data to the form. And then if you wanted to do a different version of it, you just go and get another version of the form and fill it out. Well, that's not the way DocuSign works. You can only have one instance of a form in a room. So here's that property disclosure residential. If I go up to DocuSign forms and I say, oh, you know what? I made some mistakes on here, but I can't change it. So I got to go get another one. So you go over here to DocuSign forms and you come in here and you put in, what was that? The disclosure? What do we call that one? That was property disclosure. Okay. So come over here, we type in property disclosure. Okay, it's going to be in the 463. Are there your property? Okay, look at this. NHAR, property disclosure, residential only, in use. Okay, I can't put a checkbox. It doesn't even allow me. It doesn't allow me to do anything because there's already an instance in the room. And so then, Erica, what do you got?
I realized the reason for that recently, and I don't know if it's an update, but when you have a folder and there's a form in it, you can actually just go back to the documents and update the form and it will update into the envelope.
Exactly.
Whereas before you used to have to delete the item, go update it, and then bring it back to the envelope.
You're absolutely correct. The problem in the beginning was that you couldn't do that, and you would end up bringing multiple documents in. So what that DocuSign, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the class, they've done a lot of things to help us make our business run more smoothly. And one of those is to treat these forms as constantly fillable. We can always update the information in these forms. We can always amend the information right in the form. And if we need to get our client to sign a new version, all we have to do is open up the last version in here, make the changes, put it into an envelope, and send it out for a re-sign. But it doesn't, we can't just kind of like lock this form down and say, well, we don't want to mess with the form, because quite frankly, what's really important is the returned PDF as a signed document, not the fillable form. The fillable form is just some place where you put characters in there and you make it look right. When you send it out, that's when things get serious with DocuSign, and it locks it down on their end, not here, but it locks it down on the user end. They see it and they can't change it because it's now a fillable document for them. It's a legal document, and DocuSign is kind of sealed that in the envelope. But here,
it creates a PDF.
It creates
in the
a
envelope
PDF.
and in the room.
It absolutely converts the form to a PDF when it's signed, and you can't edit that. It gives you a certification that says this is what it looked like the date it was signed. Here it is. It's locked down. But if you made a mistake on that and you needed to resend it, you could come back into this document and go, let me fix the address, fix this, fix that. And okay, resend it, and they get a new version to sign. And you'll now have 2 signed copies, the original, which clearly we didn't like because we sent it back out, and a newly signed document. So if that should happen, if you should send this one out, it comes back, you'll have a PDF. And then you make an oopsie and you go, let me send this out again, and you get back to another PDF. You can use some organizational tools in here to keep the originals and to keep the corrected versions. And simply doing a little folder management here by using actions and saying add folder. And you could put a folder in here called old versions. And then when you create this, you could put all of the bad versions of the signed copies into old versions. And then you could use another one here called signed keep. And maybe this is the way that you'll use this. So now you have a folder where you put all the stuff that's signed, and you can put it all together in here and organize it properly. And, Erica, 1 second. And when you're in command, we now, as we saw this morning, as we saw what just happened, clearly it must have happened yesterday because I'm getting all the phone calls for it. You now can select which folder it is that you're going to use to get the documents in command, so you know you're getting the right ones. What you got, Erica?
Something my transaction coordinator showed me. She uses a folder 01, buyer agency or seller agency docs, right? 02, transactional docs, 03, closing docs or whatnot. You separate it like that.
Love it.
And also, sometimes you end up putting in more than one offer for a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So I will end up creating a folder for 5 different addresses in one DocuSign room.
Absolutely. The organizational structure that you can build here, it not only keeps things clear inside of DocuSign, but it also keeps it clear now as again, evidenced this morning, when you're looking at the transaction, you can see which folder you can pull from. So if you are working on all the documents from version 2 or whatever it is, you can say, okay, let's make sure we get the right documents into the command interface by selecting the organizational folder from DocuSign. Here's all the signed ones that I'm going to keep, and then you can pull the files accordingly. So
I have a quick question, Robert. So when you say you pull up the property disclosure,
mm-hmm.
and then you decide, I don't need that, and you've written something on it, you don't need it, So now you're going to delete it, and then you find out that you need it, and you go back, and under property disclosure, once you delete it, it still shows that it's been used.
Not if you delete it from the room. So
Okay.
let's test that theory.
Okay.
So here's
Okay.
the document. So I'll go here and I'll
Okay.
right click and I'll say delete. And I'm
Yep.
deleting it from the room because I didn't need it. And then I say,
Right.
oh, wait a minute. Yes, I do. So
Right.
now, as far as DocuSign is concerned, that document essentially was never in the room.
Okay.
So if I go down here, so there it is, and it does not say in use, and it allows me to reattach this document or form and bring it
Yeah.
in, and now I can bring it back. The only
Okay,
times,
because you didn't used to be able to do that.
well, here's when you couldn't do it. Okay, so this moves down the line of the transaction itself. So right now at this point, everything that we've been talking about has to do with the documents portion only. If
Right.
I take this thing and I put it into an envelope and I take my property disclosures and I put
Right.
it into an envelope and I say, this is the property disclosures, and I add some people to this thing, and I'll say that's going to be
Right.
seller one, and it's going to be Robert Vincent or whatever it is. And I go ahead and I choose that. If I
Right.
save and close this thing now into the envelopes area,
Yeah.
you now cannot delete the form from the room because the form is halfway out the door.
Okay.
So right
Hey,
now, if I
Robert.
try, yes,
If you archive one, however, it's still going to show as not being able to use, and you'll have to search for it to unarchive it before you can use it.
that is true.
So I think that's true what Alice is talking about, because that happens to me all the time. My TC archives my forms, and I'm like, I need to use that.
That is true, and I want to make distinguish the discussion here by saying we're talking about delete right now. We hadn't gotten to archive, but you're absolutely correct. So
Right.
trying to do this, it's like, okay, you have selected one document to archive. The document can be unarchived at any time. So I click archive. So it's in there, but it's halfway in the form now. That's different from deleting.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So that is different. So here's my things here. If I go to my envelopes, that thing is still technically in the room. It's archived from the documents area, but it is not there. So now, Erica, you're also right here. The display is not showing the archived documents. But if you click here where the filters are, you can say, well, let me see all of the archived documents. So technically it's still in the room. Now let's try and delete it. I'll try and delete this thing now, and it's going to be like, oh, look at that. Well, it went. So I don't have anything sent out. So the envelope is sitting there, but it has not been sent. So the envelope is active. Let's see if this is going to, let's see if it'll go as is. Let's go ahead and throw this down. No. It's not in the room. So the envelope prevents me from sending out something that's not in the room. I deleted the document from the room. The envelope is essentially dead in the water.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, you used to not be able to delete. All you could do was archive.
Yep.
So I used to have 100 things in my archive.
Now, keep in mind too, on the last note on that is if you end up archiving or deleting stuff, you may find that you will not be able to archive or delete if the envelope has left the building, because it has to have something to come back to. Okay. Good stuff. Good questions.
I have a
Erica, you got your
question,
hand up. Hit
Robert.
me. I have trouble seeing that little hand.
The
for it, so I gotta watch it
certificates,
for it.
is there any way to set them to automatically archive? Because when you create a document and it's signed, it creates a certificate of like authenticity or something. And I don't need to see them. Do you know if there's a way to make them auto archive?
I am not familiar of any way to auto archive certificates or any document for that matter. But the fact that you guys are using folders, it is fairly easy to take, a document that is inside. Let's see, we'll go ahead and bring that in here. So,
Yeah, and move it to another folder. It just, I don't know.
No, I totally
It just
agree with you.
adds extra crap in there I don't want to look at.
Let's see if we can. Did he come in? I'm trying to throw a document in there really quickly to see if we can get it in there. So let's see what
It would need to be a well, I don't know. Maybe our certificate's different. I can always search and see if it's something.
Yeah. I'm not getting. I'm trying to drag a document in here, and it's not letting me drag a document in for some reason. All of a sudden, today, out of the blue. So it says it brings it in, but it didn't actually bring it in. Let's come over here and just revisit. Oh, great. Now, it's because I'm in archived. There you go. So yeah, one of the things that you can do is you can, I use for organizational purposes, the folder is, I create one called certificates. So as soon as a certificate comes in, I just drag it into that folder and I keep that folder closed. So that's the only way that I know of to kind of
Thank you. I'll do that.
Yeah, just archive them just by having an archive or a certificate folder. And as soon as you drag something into that folder, you can just get rid of it that way. Okay, so good stuff, you guys. So this as an introduction. Now, of course, I didn't go all the way down the line with envelopes and all the things that we can do. And I mentioned at the beginning that we have every Tuesday we're doing DocuSign stuff. So next week we're going to go into more discussion about the forms themselves and how pre-filling the forms and how to use pre-tagged roles in the envelopes. So we're going to have a discussion on that next week. Is there any other questions as this class here comes to a close about the introduction to DocuSign? And I love the tips, by the way. Thank you guys so much.
I have a question, Robert, as always.
Of course. And I mean, of course you have a question.
Yeah, right. What platform do you use to project yourself and your desktop?
Okay. Well, I'm using, me and Tim both have a tool called Ecamm Live. And it's absolutely the best tool for what we're doing. So we use this product right here, and it's not cheap, but it is absolutely the best for what we do. Okay. Yeah,
I have StreamYard. It looks similar, but not as awesome.
Yeah, and well, the other thing is too, you're watching me right now on Zoom, but Ecamm Live is actually projecting to Facebook, to YouTube, and to Zoom simultaneously, and it's giving me control over what each one sees, or I can make them all look the same. So like right now, you're looking at something that they're not seeing on Facebook.
Cool. Ecamm Live. I'll look into it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, as always, you can reach out to me at robert.vincent@kwclm. So I'll bring that screen up here for you. That's actually showing up right now perfectly. So robert.vincent@kwclm.com. And actually, just to let you guys know, that email is going to be changing soon for the training and stuff. We're going to be going to use command@kwclm.com. So that I got to make that change. We'll probably start that in December. So we're going to personalize my email and give you guys one place for all command. And that's going to be command@kwclm. You can still use that now. Timewithrobert.com is for my booking. kwtechtv.com is for all of the stuff that we meet in person, all the Zoom stuff we do. kwtechtube.com is the YouTube channel. Check it out. And of course, we're on Facebook Live in the KWCLM group. All right. 1 o'clock today, we're doing Command 101. And I think, what are we doing at 101? I forgot. We're doing something cool today. And you know what? I'm going to take a moment to bring up my little schedule. Okay, we're doing creating and managing opportunities in Command at Command 101. And then at 3 o'clock, command your referrals business with referrals. And that's for the Command 201 class at 3 p.m. right here, kwtechtv.com. We'll see you then. Have an awesome day, everyone.
Thank you. Same to you.